From buildings to chairs, from textiles to cutlery, Bauhaus designs are a break with the past. Bauhaus is quintessentially modern, sometimes even revolutionary. Yet there is no such thing as the Bauhaus style. The approach ranges from expressionist to surrealist, from the playful light space modulator by Laszlo Moholy-Nagy to Marianne Brandt's extravagant tea service. Art historian and photographer Rainer Wick has been studying the Bauhaus for 30 years. His favorite piece is the Vasily chair by Marcel Breuer, which symbolizes almost everything Bauhaus was about.
A central idea is taking out the material substance while leaving the volume of the object as it would have been, to create lightness and transparency. Those are the aesthetic maxims that are central to the Bauhaus from 1924 or 5, and they fit very well with new forms of architecture using glass and steel. You can say this chair was so revolutionary because it ushered in a new era of furniture design and interior design.
Architect Walter Gropius founded the Bauhaus in the city of Weimar in 1919. The movement grew to include other major artists like Paul Klee, Wassily Kandinsky, and Johannes Itten. They had different ideas, but they all wanted to discard the baggage of history and tradition. A prime example, Walter Gropius's house in Dessau. It had a flat roof instead of a pointy one, unheard of in the day. This film was made at his behest to demonstrate the benefits of modern living. The aim was to create a pleasing aesthetic, but even more importantly, the designs had to be practical.
They wanted to get to the core of things. Gropius once said that an object is determined by its essential quality, and that it's necessary to investigate what that quality is. And a part of that is understanding the function of each particular object.
As form followed function, objects were reduced to their essentials, as with this chess set from 1924. The pieces are geometric, and not much else. The Bauhaus home had no room for chandeliers. In this minimalist vision, the ideal light fixture is a simple sphere. Economy of form was countered by a wealth of color. The exhibition in Berlin's Berlin Gropius building shows vivid designs for a tobacconist's pavilion and a newspaper stand. The bright colors were a little too much for Wassily Kandinsky. He painted his dining room completely black. On loan from the New York Museum of Modern Art, one of Moholy-Nagy's telephone pictures. The artist dictated the exact alignment of shapes and colors over the phone. The craftsman at the other end then printed them on enamel.
In early modernism, in the avant-garde, art was no longer dependent on a process of realization through craft. Instead, it was primarily a mental process, an intellectual construct. How the artwork was actually realized, the craftsmanship and technical skill, was a secondary consideration.
After the First World War, Germans had little time for the ideas of Bauhaus. Most rejected their blueprints for a fresh, modern way of life. Yet Bauhaus designs were aimed at ordinary working people and not society's elite. Walter Gropius hoped to liberate workers from cramped and crowded tenement buildings, but his ideas failed to generate any mass appeal.
You could say the aesthetic principles of the richer classes gradually reached further down the social scale and settled there like sediment. Working people preferred to furnish their homes in a cluttered style, like so-called Gelsenkirchen Baroque, rather than what they saw as the cold, sparse Bauhaus style, which does nothing for the soul as they saw it. The minimalism of Bauhaus was never really accepted by its intended public, because they had an entirely different idea of what looked good.
The The Bauhaus movement was attacked by conservatives and later the Nazis. They said it was sick, Bolshevik, and unpatriotic. The school relocated twice, from Weimar to Dessau, and finally to Berlin, where it was forced to disband in 1933. Most of the Bauhaus teachers and students fled the country, but in just 14 years, the school had created countless icons of modern design. Some of its ideas wouldn't gain international acceptance until years later, but as the Berlin exhibition shows, today their influence is everywhere.